Hello, I'm Scott Soshnick.
And I'm Eben Novy-Williams, and this is the Game, Set, Match sports business podcast, the Sporticast.
Since I have nobody to ask, I guess I have to grade it myself. Again, a little on the literal side. You hear game, set, match, it's tennis. So, just kind of be like, all right, U.S. Open. What I've said, again, I have not thought about it. I don't know how much thought you give. Here's the big fuzzy yellow ball, honey deuce time of year, something like that. That's where we
next
are.
Time, yeah, maybe.
Alcaraz and Djokovic. Is there anybody else? But if big thing at the U.S. Open is always the night matches, right?
Yeah.
So you are plunking down hard-earned money to see a night match at the U.S. Open. Obviously, you want Djokovic. He's the number one star. You want to see Alcaraz, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It used to be Venus and Serena. On the women's side, who do you want to see if you are plunking down? You don't know. You're buying tickets, and they say, okay, the feature match at night on Ash is fill in the blank after Alcaraz and Djokovic, and let me know if you're happy.
Yeah, I think Alcaraz is probably the number one draw at this point. Djokovic, obviously very high. I think Coco Gauff, who's playing very well right now.
Coco Gauff is definitely one of them.
Next U.S. woman, high on that list.
Coming
Jessica
off a victory,
Pegula, another American woman who's playing very well.
You're putting Jess Pegula up on Ash alongside Alcaraz, Djokovic.
Who else is there?
No, I get it.
The number one ranked woman is a draw for sure. There's a few other women. Sabalenka, who's playing very well, is very fun to watch. I think she's up there too. But yeah, I think it's funny you're right. For a long time, this was, men and women for sure, but there were so many bankable women, particularly the Williams sisters.
We just put a Williams sister on and you were okay. Yep.
Yeah, and now it's now I think the pendulum has swung towards the men a little bit again. But yeah, it's
Tiafoe?
I think he'd be up there. He's certainly exciting, and he's one of those players that interacts with the crowd a lot. And we'll get into the finances of the USTA, but I was talking to Lou Scher, the CEO of the USTA, this week, and he was saying that last year they had a lot of commercial success, and everybody was saying, oh, that's just because it's Serena Williams last year. There's this huge storyline happening. Everybody wants to watch because Serena's there. And he was saying that in some ways the success that they are projecting this year is really exciting to him because there's no dominant storyline, right? There's just a lot of things happening in tennis, but there's no huge thing that anyone can point to and be like, oh, you had record numbers, but sure, of course you did, because this 1 in a million thing happened.
Yeah, it's got to be about tennis and mass. Yeah,
and exactly the lack of storyline. I think for some people in the tennis world,
that's the storyline.
Actually, is making the business growth that the sport is seeing, making them feel like that's more solid and on a better footing than I think it might be if this was Roger Federer's last year, right after Serena Williams' last year, etc.
Heaven help him if Alcaraz or Djokovic gets hurt or for some reason gets bounced early. Yeah. That would be a tough rest of the way.
Yeah, one thing that I think we don't have to get too deep onto the tennis side, but this is the best young American male group. I think there's 5 American men in the top 30 right now. I'm not sure if that's happened any time in the past few decades. So there's a chance for some really exciting, if you are a nationalist as you watch, if you care about the Americans in the sport, there's a chance that both the American men and American women go very deep in this tournament, and that has not happened all that often in the past 2 decades of tennis.
Allow me to show my knowledge of the hard court serve and volley. John Isner having his last U.S. Open. If you like the hard court serve and volley, go see a John Isner match. You don't know how long that'll last.
John Isner, Jack Sock, another American man who was fairly high ranked for a little bit. Is his last year as well. There's a changing of the guard for sure on the men's side in the U.S. and it's a lot of Tommy Paul and Christopher Eubanks, Francis Tiafoe up there as well, Taylor Fritz.
Look at you.
It's this
Look
younger
at you.
class. Ben Shelton. I could go all day.
Look
Scott.
at you. You've been hanging out at the Open the past couple of days, so it's all coming back. Yeah, a little refresher course on men's tennis.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think if I'm the USTA, one of the things I'm pointing to, I think, heading into this tournament again is this excitement around the U.S. men that has not really been there for a while.
All I know is the luxury is doing very well. That's what I know. That's what I know. Everything the U.S. Open, from the cocktails to the suites to the box seats to the lounges, It's about luxury. But that's one of the reasons why the financials are what they are. And like you said, you spoke to Lou Scher, the CEO of the USTA. Tell me where they are and where they're headed and how they get there.
The USTA is in really good shape, Scott, and that's just a few years after the COVID pandemic really, really hit them hard. The USTA.
Well, when one tournament fuels so much of what you do, if you lose this tournament, you lose the engine.
Yeah, I think the easiest comparison is to think of it like what the NCAA men's basketball tournament is to the NCAA, right? That it is one event that is 90% of your revenue. It funds almost everything else that you do throughout the year. And in 2020, when the U.S. Open had to look for a second like it might not happen, but when they were able to hold the event without fans, it was a $200 million revenue hit right there. And just a few short years removed from those kind of dark days, the USTA is record revenue, $530 million, up 10% from 2019 before the pandemic. Every metric in the U.S. Open, Scott, as you mentioned, hospitality, sponsorships, ticket sales, broadcast, all of those metrics are at essentially record highs.
And like you said, it's not to see Serena one last time.
And again, yeah, they're projecting to be really high again, if not, again, record-setting for almost all those things this year, which, again, Lou Scher really excited about. A couple other things that jump out, and you and I talked about this on the podcast about a year ago when it happened, but the USTA sold that Cincinnati event to Ben Navarro, the ATP event. Made $200 million on it, and essentially.
That's a one-time boost.
It's a one-time boost. They paid less than $20 million about a decade ago to buy 94% of this tournament, and then turned around and sold it for $270 million last year. So they have a lot more cash on their balance sheet because of this transaction. They had a $75 million revolving credit facility that they had taken out a few years ago as a way of floating the group through the pandemic related cost constraints. They just canceled that revolver in February. So, and the reason they did is because they had enough liquidity to cover any kind of concerns moving forward. So in a lot of ways, almost any way you look at it, financially, things are on pretty solid footing right now for the USTA.
Right. You and I have been out at the facility for many, many years now. We know every inch and every nook, every cranny. So you took some of the new Sportico folks out there, showed them around a little bit.
I did.
Please tell me you got the price of the honeydews.
The price of the honeydews is $22, I believe, which I think is stagnant.
I was going to say that's what it was last year.
Yeah, I think that's what it was last year. There's some interesting. The beverage stuff is interesting. The honeydews has for so long been this kind of venerated part of the U.S. Open establishment. The U.S. Open has signed a few other alcohol partners this year.
Yeah, and more coming. More coming, I'm told.
Tequila one, the name is escaped. I think it might be called Match Point, whatever it's called. There's another signature cocktail out there. There's a turf war happening, I think, too.
So wait, what's our story here? What's our story here? Is it
it's in the works. I don't want to give away too much, but one of our colleagues is working on this exact thing.
Okay, we better be.
When you go from one kind of signature cocktail to having multiple
drunk
alcohol
tennis
partners.
fans, the story in Queens. That's it. It's just get them drunk. That's your storyline in Queens.
I don't think the tequila one has the melon balls, the 3 melon balls resembling the tennis balls like the honeydews does. But yeah, there's a little bit of an alcohol war going on out there. Other things that are new this year, Scott, which are interesting maybe to our listeners. First year at the U.S. Open that the men and women are using the same ball. Mm-hmm. Which was a controversy of sorts last year. A few of the women, the harder-hitting women, complaining about the way the ball was reacting. Now, for the first time at the U.S. Open, both men and women will be using the same Wilson ball. So that's pretty new. This is the 50th anniversary of equal pay for men and women at the U.S. Open, which is something that the USTA I know is very proud of and will be celebrating a lot, I think, in the next few weeks. So those are two big storylines. We sat in, our colleague Lev and I sat with Novak Djokovic on Friday for the PTPA press conference, the PTPA being the new Professional Tennis Players Association.
Shout out Ahmad Nassar.
Yep, run by Ahmad Nassar. And it really, I don't wax poetic that much about athletes.
Are you about to wax poetic?
I am.
Really?
I was really impressed by Novak. The amount of his time that he has dedicated to this cause. For folks who don't know, Novak and his and fellow tennis player Vasek Pospisil founded the PTPA back in 2020, trying to get more money for the lower ranked players. And Novak is very outspoken. We talked to him at length on Friday about this exact idea, that for him, tennis is gravy, and he's obviously earned that. But he wants more tennis players ranked between 75 and 150.
The lower ranked players lose money just based on
living.
transportation and hotel
They
and
have to
food
pay their
and
own
masseuse
way.
and
Exactly. And the PTPA is doing a lot of work organizing and trying to push the USTA, the ATP, the WTA, the other Grand Slams, all the powers that be in tennis to try to treat those lower ranked players better. And it made me think about there is this tension in all these other sports, right, about union representation, and the stars and the younger paid players and rookies and things like that often get the short shrift.
We call them the rank and file.
Leagues.
Nobody, that the stars get what they want. The rank and file get pushed aside.
And Novak is the best tennis player in the world and has been for a while now, and he is making it very clear every chance he gets that the players that are the rank and file need to be paid more. And I was just impressed by, again, how eloquent he was on the topic, and two, just the fact that the person who has benefited the most from the amount of money that is flush at the top of the sport, being this outspoken about trying to trickle that down towards lower players.
Right, this is not business related, but I want to talk about this because you hear people all the time, and this is like on-court related, which I don't often do. But say you mentioned the balls; they could be using the same ball.
Yeah.
There's the famous "quiet, please." At all tennis tournaments, and people are like, why do they need quiet to hit the ball? If you can hit a baseball with 50,000 people yelling, if you can shoot a free throw, blah 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 blah. You get that from your sports radio type.
Yeah.
I once asked Roger Federer, and you and I have had this discussion, so you know the answer.
Yeah.
But I once asked him about it. And I didn't really know this, and I think maybe some of our listeners might not either, but I find it very interesting in that it's not a concentration thing. Like golfers, it's a still ball, and I guess it's just focus, and they have to hit the ball. Okay, that's fine, whatever, that's the sport. But in tennis, the players, or at least Roger, told me that the sound of the ball off the racket indicates to him what type of shot, what type of spin. He can analyze what's coming his way by the sound, not only looking at it and the spin, but how it sounded coming off the racket, which I did not know at the time. So the next time some yokels say, quiet, why do they need quiet? Can't they just hit the ball? Now you know. There's a reason why, a tactical reason why tennis players would like some silence, so they can tell what kind of slice, whether it's a flat hit, they know exactly what's coming at them. That's all. My public service announcement. There we go.
In a future world where you could be loud during tennis matches, it would be advantageous for you to be loud while your guy is serving.
Yes.
Because the returner would have a disadvantage on the picking up that audible advantage.
And how fun would that be if you could also sit like fans of one player on one side of and the other on the other? Not only are the heads like swinging back and forth, but the audio would rise and fall depending on who was hitting.
Right as he's about to serve.
I kind of think that would be really fun, and who can decipher the sound anyway through the noise. I think it'd be kind of fun. But anyway, I just thought I would bring that up. And you talk about Djokovic makes a lot of money. Mentioned Roger makes a lot of money on the court, off the court. But in the NFL, it's pretty clear. There's no positions in tennis. You're just a tennis player. But in the NFL, there are positions. And it's pretty clear, Mr. Novy-Williams, as Kurt Badenhausen takes a peek as we enter an NFL season at the highest paid players in the NFL. Now, this won't surprise anybody. However, the depth of it, I think, is a little surprising. That I don't think you'd be surprised to know that of the top 10, how many are quarterbacks in the highest paid? The answer is 9. Yeah. And then here, let me go to the phone here because I took a picture. You and I both said the same thing for number 10. Hold on, I got to find the guy's name here. Hold on. I didn't never heard of this guy. Oh, now trying to get my phone to cooperate here. Okay, Chris Lindstrom of the Atlanta Falcons, or as my old co-host Jerry Azar used to type, he could not type Falcons or Giants. It was always Flackens and Gignats. And that became a running joke. It was just, in the copy, it would always be Flackens and Gignats. So that dude from the Flackens is number 10. And you're telling me somehow you knew this because he had a big bonus.
Yeah, so this is a list of highest paid players this year based on salary and their signing bonus. So it's a little bit skewed based on who signed this year because, as a lot of people know, NFL contract's not guaranteed, but you give guaranteed money at the front end via signing bonuses.
But let's be clear though. There's no rule preventing guaranteed contracts.
There is no rule preventing
people
them.
forget it. Yeah. People forget that. Oh, you can't. You can guarantee anything you want.
Yeah.
And NFL
Deshaun
teams
Watson
are yes.
And Kirk Cousins, I think, had one
for obvious reasons. The physicality and the injuries that not an if, it's when. they are loath, owners and GMs are loath to give out long-term guaranteed money to a football player. However, there is nothing that prevents it. Just wanted to make sure people understood that.
Two things I want to mention that stood out to me about these charts and this story. One, it was a reminder to me about how, except for just a few names, from a marketing standpoint, how many really big names in the NFL have essentially no marketing or endorsement
contract
portfolio.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? There are some big. Patrick Mahomes obviously does very well. Dak Prescott, Aaron Rodgers, and we can get into State Farm in a second. There are a few players that really do well on a national advertising scale. But unlike the NBA, where there's a lot of players that are doing some sort of kind of maybe $5 to $10 million endorsement portfolio range, there's almost none of that in the NFL. Lamar Jackson, $2 million from endorsements. Daniel Jones, number 3 on the list, $1.5 million.
Daniel Jones could be sitting next to me, and I'm not sure I would know it was Daniel Jones.
Deshaun Watson, number 4 on the list, $500,000 in terms of annual endorsements. There's just a lot of that in this on this chart, and that's always interesting to me because the NFL, as we talk about so much, is the biggest, richest sports league in the world. It is such a massive business, but for the players, maybe it's the helmets, maybe whatever other reasons, endorsement wise, it's actually not as big as I think a lot of people think it is. The second thing that jumped out to me, Scott, Lev, Akabas, and Kurt put together this chart of the top 50 NFL contracts by annual value, color coded by position. And I would have thought going into this that quarterback is obviously heavy towards the front. I would have thought offensive line would be the next one. And it's wide receiver now.
We're going back to the skill position, the sexy skill position.
Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, DK Metcalf. There's a few wide receivers in here. It's clear that the number 2 position pay-wise is wide receiver. And I think as you said, I think that's a change recently. I think
amazing, by the way, because as you mentioned, if you don't have the offensive lineman, neither that wide receiver nor that quarterback is going to do anything on the football field.
Yeah, I think the kind of the origins of the blind side, Michael Lewis was kind of calling attention to just how valuable both financially and strategically offensive linemen were. And for a while they were getting these huge contracts. They're still paid very well, but it's clear from looking at this list that wide receivers and maybe even defensive linemen are compensated better than offensive linemen, and that surprised me.
And in all my travels, I keep my eyes peeled for sports business stuff. When I was in Rome, I was looking for all the different sport logos, and I even tweeted something out like, I couldn't go 10 seconds without somebody passing by with a sports team. And I believe I tweeted Yankees, University of Alabama, all the big soccer brands in the world. Yeah, there was a big guy in Alabama, and I stopped and talked to him. That was fun. But I mean, just everywhere, these brands. And let me tell you, you know where I spent this past weekend? That vacation hotbed of Buffalo, New York, right? West Seneca, to be specific, is where we stayed. But we played at the Harbor Center, which is the Sabres practice facility attached to the rink they play in. Let me tell you something about Buffalo. You ready?
Yep.
No matter where you go, I'm talking the lobby of the whatever hotel we stayed in, the bar, the restaurant, the outdoor, wherever you're walking down by the harbor side, Josh Allen is freaking everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it is Josh Allen everywhere. We went to dinner, and I got a couple of good looks. This was fun because they had this big Super Bowl promotion up in the restaurant. And I walked over and I said, "Oh, I didn't know they knew about Super Bowls in Buffalo." And I said it out loud for fun. I got a couple of exactly. I got a couple of looks, whatever. But it was fun. It was fun. But I mean, Josh Allen, this guy is everything in that town. I mean, he is everywhere. Forget Rasmus Dahlin. It's not. Nice. Thank you. It is not happening. It is not happening for Dominic Hasek. I can tell you that. It was just, man, oh, man. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing this guy, and everybody just wore his jersey. If one player owns a town, I'm telling you, Josh Allen owns Buffalo.
number 9 on the highest paid NFL players list.
Penultimate
by
of
way.
the top 10. Number
28 at salary and bonus, 9 in endorsements. Buffalo getting a new stadium, which I think you and I may be talking about at some point in the near future on the show
public money
as well. But yeah, there's a lot of momentum out there. No baseball team, no basketball team, so it's a two sport town, and they're obviously very rabid. So yeah, I would the fact that the Bills are good, the fact that they have a quarterback that could be there his entire career and is very talented. I'm not surprised that you're seeing Josh Allen stuff everywhere.
All right, you want surprised? You are something that does
Yes.
surprise. I'm going off the list here, but off the board. And we rarely discuss really what we're talking about. We very loosely say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we go do our thing. But I'm going to surprise you. So I'm leaving Buffalo. And by the way, after a 5-0 week, focus group of 1, solid in the net. Good win over Honey Baked to close it out. That's a Detroit team, by the way. Really, really good week for the focus group of 1. He was solid in the net. As was his cohort, Luke O'Neill. Shout out, Luke O'Neill. But I just put in Waze, and I'm driving home. And normally, I would go 90 east to 81, 380, 80. When I went to school at Syracuse, that's the way I went to school. But I was not paying attention. It was early. I'm tired, and I just start driving. And all of a sudden, it's taking me away. I've never gone before. And I see the big sign after we get off like the little 2-lane thingy. The main sign is we're going past Williamsport.
Okay.
So we hit Williamsport, Pennsylvania.
You're in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. We hit Williamsport, Pennsylvania at 1:45 p.m. The championship game, Curacao against California, is slated to begin at 3 p.m. I mean, I can pretty much see the stadium. We are right there.
That's amazing.
And I turned a focus group of 1. I'm like, dude, we don't have tickets, but I don't know. Maybe I can make a couple calls or sit on the hill. Do you want to pull off? Should we stop and go see the game? Answer, no.
Okay.
I don't know if he was tired. You're not surprised. I was shocked. And frankly, I wish in retrospect, California wins on a walk-off bottom of the 6th.
Home run.
Yeah. I wish I had just said, tough. We're here. This is a fun thing to do. We're passing by. This is a sign from the Ways gods that we should do this. And he said no, and he was tired. I get it. He was up early, and he had a great game, but he just, no, I'm tired. I just want to go home. Boom, boo. And by the way, speaking of Ways, you'll like this one too. On the way up, did you see my tweet? Exit 199 somewhere in Pennsylvania. It says, arrow, Scott. So I tweeted saying, Waze is saying something else. What should I do? And the Waze people tweeted back, do we need to say it? Yeah, good marketing from the Waze people. I'm very happy the Waze people engaged with it. So thank you, Waze people. I thought that was very funny. Well done on the social media front, Waze people.
I want to go back to the Little League for a second. You would have expected your son to want to go?
Absolutely.
I'm not surprised at all. Watching 14-year-olds play baseball
12
doesn't seem
year-olds.
that fun to me.
He's 14.
Play baseball.
Oh, but we watch it on TV.
We
watch it on TV. And
is that right? Okay.
He plays baseball too, and he likes to watch it. And I just thought, we're there. It was so unexpected, just a surprise. Oh my God, we're passing the stadium. We're at the exit. Let's just get off and sit. We'll get a bite to eat. We'll sit on the hill and we'll watch. Even if it was like 3, I don't care. We're there. Why not? It's either that or just drive home. And he chose drive home.
So here's a hot take question that I don't know the answer to. Jackson is 14 years old. He's 2 years older than these kids on the field.
Yes.
Obviously, those 2 years you go through a lot of growth and development.
Yeah.
Is Jackson as a pretty decent baseball player better than the kids playing in the Little League World Series?
I would say as a whole, probably yes.
Okay.
But you do get the outliers, and I use that term for a reason because I'm going Malcolm Gladwell on you here. A lot of the better kids there are the ones who just either hit puberty early or just grow fast.
Developmentally.
You see the 6'1" versus 6'1", 175 pounds is playing against 4'11", 97 pounds. It is what it is. And then you had the pitcher from Chinese Taipei. Did you see this kid? Did you hear about this?
I did not know.
He was throwing. He's a 12-year-old, big kid, throwing 82 miles per hour, which is the equivalent of 105 at a 60-foot, 6-inch mound. He's throwing 105 miles per hour equivalent. What do you think those kids are going to get hits off him?
Well, the team didn't win, did they?
Well, you can't pitch every day. I don't think he lost the game,
Okay.
And then the kid who hit the home run to win it was like his 5th home run of the world. The kid's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see the bigger kids. So anyway, it is what it is.
All that to say that if I'm Jackson, I think watching kids who are roughly as good as me play baseball, it isn't all that enticing.
I just think it's more of the show. You haven't seen the stadium. Fair. It's just you've seen it on TV. You just kind of want to see it for yourself. Going, oh, it really is as small as I think it is.
Yeah.
I want to sit on the hill. I want that kind of stuff.
And to bring it back to business, you talk on the show a lot about the kind of the commercial operation behind Jackson's hockey. Youth baseball seems to be the sport that has gotten as far.
I want to call up the Little League 990 for sure. Yeah.
There's TV.
That broadcast deal with ESPN is something else.
Week plus of tournament games televised live on ESPN and ESPN2. Maybe youth hockey gets to that point at some point as well. But the business around youth baseball seems to be the most developed of all the youth sports here in the U.S., at least right now.
Yes, and in fairness to the focus group of one, he did wake up at 6 o'clock, and as you know, he was a bit ill and was throwing up all morning at 6 a.m. Went back to sleep. Feels fine, though. Update, he feels fine. So that's good. Maybe it was just fatigue or who knows what. All right, what we're going to talk. We're going to talk about college football, right? Is that where we were going before I derailed us?
Do it, yeah.
I'm excited. What do we got? FSU right this weekend?
Big
FSU,
game,
LSU?
State, LSU.
Michigan plays.
Florida State is back. We'll see. We had the week 0 this past weekend where a couple teams played.
27 million people went to Ireland to see Notre Dame play.
Beat the wheels off of Navy.
Yeah.
But the real college football starts this coming week.
Okay, wait a minute. I have to chime in though.
Some big names. Yeah.
Before we get that, you said Navy, which made me think we haven't talked about Daniel Libbett's big win, did we?
We have not talked about Daniel.
So go for it. Why don't you go to? Just talking about a service academy. Go ahead.
For sure. Yeah. So our colleague Daniel Libett sued Army and West Point Academy, more specifically, earlier this year because all of the service academies, Army, Navy, and Air Force, refused to turn over athletic documents that are public records at most public universities because they have created these non-federal nonprofits that run their athletic departments. And we see this in a few other states as well.
Yep.
But essentially, Army athletics is run by a nonprofit, and therefore the military says
exempt from FOIA requests.
Exempt from open records laws. Daniel felt like that was not in the spirit of the law. He made a legal motion to force Army to turn those documents over. As part of that case, Daniel did not win per se, but you can make the argument that he won. Army agreed to give him all the documents he was looking for and to
honor
treat
any future
the
requests.
Open records as this nonprofit as something that is not exempt under open records requests, as it pursues a more definitive legal definition of whether it has to give these things over in the future.
You know what I call that, Eben?
A win is what I.
Well, you call it. I call it journalism.
There you go. Yeah.
Journalism. We don't see a lot of it these days, especially in the sports business coverage. Journalism.
So for folks who are curious about what this might mean, we're going to be getting here at Sportico over the next few months. My guess is hundreds, if not thousands, of pages of documents about the economics of Army's football and basketball and athletic teams. And the first thing we published last week was essentially the 20-page contract by which the military academy, the Army, contracted with this nonprofit to operate the Army athletics. And it includes all the money, the stipends that the military academy pays this nonprofit to do operations. It includes essentially a breakdown of who's responsible for what financially. The Army maintains the facilities, and also a number of the athletic staffers are actually federally employees. But then things like game day operations and travel, this nonprofit has to handle. It's an interesting look at the way in which this kind of unique situation was set up on Army's campus, whereby athletics is essentially a nonprofit 501c3 that is just overseen by the obviously public federal government.
Attaboy, Daniel Libett.
Yep.
All right, let's lend it with big money and Leo Messi, and again, I'll make it personal because it's fun and why not? So I sent my wife to the game because we were out of town in Buffalo and she had to stay and work. She couldn't make it there. I said, hey, at least if you, I'm saying she could not go to Buffalo with us because she was working. She could not leave. So I said, well, do you want to go to the game? This is going to be a big event. Messi's in town. Would you like to go? So she says yes. She brings a friend. They go to the game, having a wonderful time with, by the way, our former podcast producer, Medina Parwana. Hello, Medina.
Shout out Medina.
Yep. And of course, so Messi doesn't start, and she's texting me. He's not playing, and then he's warming up. The place is going crazy. I'm getting video. I know. That's why I got it. Like, I figured this is what would happen. There was zero chance he wasn't going to play at all.
Yeah.
There was no way. So he comes on, and guess what? I mean, I know it's not. This I don't understand. I know it's crowded. I get it. It's going to be hard to get home. She left early, and heard the roar of the crowd of Messi's goal from the parking lot.
That's amazing. What a goal it was, right?
Oh, my.
Beautiful pass.
For people who do not understand when I say that soccer, hockey, these are games of space and time.
Vision, yeah.
Yeah, and if you ever need a textbook video example of what understanding space is, look at this goal by Messi. Put the ball to space. As the heads turn, he cuts, makes his own space. Ball's just put on his foot, and it was an easy tap in.
Yeah.
I mean, a textbook example of vision and creativity from an elite athlete, and you wonder why he's Leo Messi? Just look at that one play. And not only to see it, but the outside of the left foot touch pass was right where it had to be, the proper pace. That is why he is who he is, and that is exactly why Wayne Gretzky, who was who he is, when he said, go to where it's going to, the puck's going to be, not where it is. Leo Messi, he understood that's where the player needed to be, led him to space. That's what Gretzky used to do. That is why they are who they are.
I know a few people who were at the stadium on Saturday for the game, and everybody said the attention that Leo got when he took his training uniform off to warm up on the sidelines was like nobody was watching the game itself. It was like everybody was watching this guy on the sideline just jogging around, warming up. It seemed like the entire crowd was there just chanting to get Messi into the game, and then when it seemed clear that he was going to go in, the atmosphere got infinitely more exciting. And sorry to your wife, but it sounds like when that goal was scored, the place went.
What do you mean sorry? It's a self-inflicted wound. No sorry, self-inflicted. You could have stayed. So you had a little traffic to get out. Big deal.
And this was the first MLS regular season game that Messi has played in. Inter Miami has not yet lost since he's been playing with them. But as we've talked about on the show, the next few months are going to be this huge push to try to get Inter Miami into the playoffs. I think as we mentioned with Marc de Grandpré last week, the president of Red Bull. Inter Miami is everyone in the league's second favorite team now.
Yeah.
And when you're not playing them, you really want them to win because you want this team in the playoffs, because all of this commercial bonanza that's happening around Messi could be even bigger if he's playing in the playoffs.
Yeah, there's actually there's a new rule in front of the owners right now to make the first round of the playoffs best of 9.
Yeah, exactly.
Only for the Inter Miami teams.
The last place team gets in, and then it's best of 9.
Yep.
Yeah. There's definitely people around the league, I'm sure, would love to see Inter Miami, they're in last place in the Eastern Conference, put together a really strong second half, make it into the playoffs, and then who knows what'll happen. But I feel like we're talking about this every week at this point, Scott. But what a dream start. You could not have. I don't think you could have thought that it would be the first 9 games of the Messi experience would be this exciting, would be this dramatic. This much would have happened. He has 12 goals at this point.
Yeah,
11 goals,
I mean,
like
listen,
that.
we've had big
remarkable.
Players join this league, whether it's Beckham. And his good sports business
David
implication,
Villa,
David Villa. That's our. So I mean, we've had big players, big name players. We've had nothing like this.
Yeah.
And the implications, not only of the now and the franchise values of whatever Jorge Mas says the team is now worth, but the league itself and the validity and who else might be coming and who might look. And the Apple and the Adidas and the contract itself, the sports business implications of this guy at this time with this league. They go on and on. It's a great story.
I'm sure you saw this. They put the game on in Times Square on Saturday night, and it looked like there were hundreds of people hanging out in Times Square watching it. I can't think of another
I saw
sporting
Elmo.
event.
I saw
Spider-Man was there.
Well, I wasn't sure. Was a Naked Cowboy there? Is he a Messi fan? I'm not sure if he was. Yeah, I saw Spider-Man and Elmo and a whole bunch of other of his friends.
Yeah, that is, again, I don't know exactly how that came to be. I think it's smart, but I can't think of the last sporting event that you could have put on there and had probably a crowd that big kind of organically forming. I think that I think says a lot about where MLS is in the current country's kind of sporting landscape.
I'm not sure it really tells the tale when you tell me there are hundreds of people in Times Square. Just saying.
It may have been thousands. I don't know. The photo I saw was just jammed. But
150 of the people who were there were not there for Messi. They were on their way to the Olive Garden.
Fair. Yeah, and Scott was leading the charge.
And I was out front. That's my
front of the group.
That's me. I'm in the supporters section of Olive Garden.
By the way, real quick as an aside before we wrap up, I don't know if you saw this, but there was a sociology study published recently about how infrequently Americans mix between people of social status above or below them in America.
And the place that happens most is Olive Garden? Is that what you're going to tell me?
Olive Garden and Applebee's
Yes!
were the two places where Americans are most likely to encounter people of a very different economic class.
Excuse me, Mr. Buffett, are you going to have that breadstick? That's what's happening there, right?
Exactly.
I'm a man of the people for the people.
I immediately thought of you, Scott. I was like,
perfect.
Scott's been on this forever.
Perfect. I love it. I had a Facebook memory the other day where it said, Janet Paskin helped me to get the Olive Garden pass. I don't know how many years ago it was, but yeah, I got the pasta pass. So always a good smile at a memory of me getting the pasta pass. They sell out in seconds. So that's it. Close the show, Novy-Williams.
If you're ever looking for Scott, you can find him at Olive Garden. But in the meantime, you can find him on Twitter at Soshnick. I am Eben Novy-Williams on
done.
Twitter.
Don't
at
mess it up now.
Don't
mess it up now.
Show is produced by Keith Zanardi and Aaron Greenewald. Shout out to both of them. Sportico's digital media editor Cora Veltman would like you to know that you can follow the show at Sporticast, which is the hub of the Sportico Media Network.